Have you ruled out Te Pāti Māori too soon?
I haven't ruled anybody out.
Are you ruling out the ACT Party?
I think the ACT Party and the Labour Party have such different views of the world. I think the likelihood of Labour and ACT ever working together is close to zero.
I wanted to ask you around about the purpose of Te Aka Whai Order, the Independent Māori Health Authority. Are you committed to reinstating that? Tēnā koe, e te kaiarahi o te rōpū reipa, Chris Hipkins. Lots of emotion and drama on the paepae this year. Big news with the departure of Peeni Henare. A surprise to even many here at Waitangi, his own people. What happened?
It's never easy to say goodbye to a valued colleague like that. Peeni and I first had a conversation about his future after the by-election, and it was at his instigation. He came and talked to me about the fact that it had hit him pretty hard and that he was sort of thinking about what he wanted to do next and whether he wanted to stand in Tamaki Makaurau and whether he wanted to stay in Parliament. And by the end of last year, he'd sort of communicated that he didn't want to stand again in Tamaki Makaurau, and over the summer reached the decision that it was time to go. And wanted to make that announcement here, and I really supported him to do that. And it got a little bit messy around how that happened, but I think it was right that he was here at home amongst his people when he made his announcement.
You raised the by-election. Peeni is a senior MP. Experience comes from a political dynasty. What happened? What did you learn from that by-election?
We certainly learned that standing a current sitting member of Parliament against a new candidate leaves you open to the challenge, which I think Te Pāti Māori effectively mounted at that time, that if you vote for us, you're going to get two for the price of one. And I think that really did have an impact on Peeni's chances in the Tamaki Makaurau by-election, because I think people were looking at him saying, well, you're already in Parliament, we're going to have you anyway, now we can have someone else as well. And I think that was really hard for him.
So how do you combat that this election?
Well, this election is going to be a whole different ball game, because of course everybody's up for election, and the result of the general election and who's going to be in government is all up for grabs as well. So I think by-elections have their own dynamic. It's not like a general election campaign.
You said his departure was a loss, but also an opportunity for renewal. Who is the renewal?
I'm pretty excited about the people who are putting their names forward. So nominations closed just this past Sunday, and there's now a selection process that the party goes through. Some of the Māori seats have got more than one person who wants to be the candidate. Others, there's one, because there's already been conversations, amongst the local party about who they want to put forward. The party now has to go through a process of, selecting and confirming those candidates, and then we tell the rest of the world who they are. But it's pretty exciting. I've met, some very, very cool new people.
Another paepae business, Te Pāti Māori co-leader Rauri Waititi, perhaps attempting to bury the hatchet with Ngāpuhi here on the paepae. He's optimistic they can pull their team back together, their party back together before November, the elections. Have you ruled out Te Pāti Māori too soon?
I haven't ruled anybody out, but I've said that the Māori Party, Te Pāti Māori, need to really work on their internal relationships. And I think that was evident on the marae today, that they've still got issues themselves that they have to work through.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you saw that play out on the marae today. There's clearly still quite a lot of division within Te Pāti Māori, and they need to really work through that.
Is that not just tikanga?
Well, that's their business.
And the drama of the paepae?
That's their business, and they need to work their way through that.
Could you work with them to change the government?
Of course we want to change the government. My goal between now and the election, though, on the 7th of November, is to get as many votes for Labour as possible. And a very, very clear message to Māori voters, actually. If you want to get rid of this government, then voting Labour guarantees that.
And if you need Te Pāti Māori to form a coalition, is the door open to them?
I've said that close to the election, we'll set out which parties we can work with, where we've got common ground and where we can't work with other parties. there's still a lot of water to flow under the bridge yet. As I've said, Te Pāti Māori have got some issues to work through. Other parties are just starting to release their election policies. And I think we need to see what they are before we start making decisions about who we could and couldn't work with.
We recently commissioned the Mata Horizon poll where we asked Māori voters if they thought Aotearoa New Zealand has become more or less racist under this current coalition government, or stayed the same. The results are 7% said less, 28% around about the same, and 58% answered that they thought the country had become more racist under this coalition government. What do you put that down to?
I find that a really heartbreaking result, to be honest. I feel like in my lifetime we've made progress in being a less racially divided country, and it has felt like the last few years have been a bit of more than a bit of a step backward, quite a step backwards. Things like the Treaty Principles Bill have really hurt, and I can understand why they've really hurt. Even small things can become big things. Removing te reo Māori words from school books is such a step backwards for us. As a non-Māori New Zealander, I'm really proud of the fact that my kids are learning te reo Māori alongside English in school. We have nothing to fear from that. It's actually going to make them better at English. So I think we should be embracing it.
You mentioned the Treaty Principles Bill, and at the time you called it a grubby little bill that came about as a result of a grubby little deal. David Seymour is vowing to try that again. Are you ruling him out?
I'm categorically ruling out the Treaty Principles Bill. And
of course, ruling out the ACT Party?
I think the ACT Party and the Labour Party have such different views of the world. I think the likelihood of Labour and ACT ever working together is close to zero. David Seymour, I think, is pushing a barrow that we don't want to have anything to do with.
You said once the Māori wanted to do the mahi themselves and they wanted the Crown to stop acting as an impediment to that. You say, if we listened, it's time that we acted upon it. And so I wanted to ask you around about the purpose of Te Aka Whai Ora, the Independent Māori Health Authority. Are you committed to reinstating that?
Not necessarily reinstating Te Aka Whai Ora, and there's a variety of reasons that we've been talking about around that. I know a lot of the people who put their names forward to be involved in Te Aka Whai Ora were pretty burned and traumatised by that experience and have been clear that they don't want to go through that again. And so I think we have to look at other ways of achieving the same outcome, though, which is how do we get resources directly into the hands of Māori, providing more ability to shape the outcomes that Māori want for themselves. And it might be that a more devolved approach to funding achieves a similar outcome, but in a more, robust and lasting way. Because establishing a Māori Health Authority, then having another government disestablish it, to re-establish it, to then have it disestablished again, it's not going to move Māori health forward. But giving the money directly to Māori health providers, for example, and giving them more autonomy over how they use that money could actually be a more effective way of achieving the outcomes that we're looking for.
When you look at some of the health, where Māori sit in the health system, more childhood hospitalisations, you've got lower immunisation rates and the rest of it. You're saying you're not committed to reinstating something that is an independent health authority. Are you saying that Health New Zealand does a better job?
No, absolutely not. I think the health system has got a long way to go to provide Māori with the equitable outcomes in the health area that Māori deserve to have access to. What I am saying is that I want Māori to have much greater influence over how that's achieved. And Te Aka Whai Ora was only one of the ways that we looked at achieving that. Actually, there are other ways as well. So
if it's not Te Aka Whai Ora, what are you thinking in terms of being able to devolve resources into the community, into iwi providers? Have you got a policy underway? Our health policy is well underway, and you'll hear us making more announcements on that during the election campaign, but it will be focused much more on devolution, on getting resources directly to Māori health providers so that they can work with their communities to achieve the outcomes that they want for their communities. And if you announce this policy or you roll it out and you do become the government, and if there is a pushback like with Te Aka Whai Ora, will you be brave enough to stand by it? Well, we stood by Te Aka Whai Ora right up until it was disestablished, and I was really disappointed that that's the way that happened. The National Party say that they believe in more devolution of resources, so I hope that this is something that will be a more enduring way of achieving the outcome that we're looking for. Do you think in the 6 years that Labour was in power that they missed the opportunity to make effective change around wages?
There's certainly more we could have done. I would have loved to have passed fair pay agreements in our first term rather than in our second term. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the numbers in Parliament to do that. Winston Peters, despite claiming to be the workers' champion, actually vetoed having fair pay agreements in place in that first term. I think those are the sorts of things that will make a big difference, because fair pay agreements would help to lift the wages of those who are on the lowest incomes.
Is that the issue? Is that you moved too slowly in those first two terms?
I think fair pay agreements would have made more of a difference had they been in place earlier. I'm not saying that that's the only thing that would have made a difference. If you look at other areas, the minimum wage, for example, we were able to advance the minimum wage far faster than any other government has done in recent times, and people did feel the difference from that. What really hurt, though, was the big spike in the cost of living, off the back of the global pandemic. That wasn't just in New Zealand, it was around the world, and we were very much wrapped up in that. But it meant that for those who had seen their wages growing, suddenly found that they were going backwards again, and so there's a lot more catch-up work still required.
You had tools, though. You were the lawmakers, and I'm thinking of the review of the grocery sector and the appointment of the Grocery Commissioner that has proved to really be ineffectual. What would you do about the supermarket duopoly if you were to get back into government?
I think there are a range of areas where the competitive market is not acting as it should. Groceries is one of them. The electricity sector is not operating as it should. We've actually seen even the current government acknowledging the insurance sector is not operating as it should. The lack of a competitive market that's putting downward pressure on prices in New Zealand is a challenge, and that is something that we are going to do more on next time we're in government.
You have economist Craig Rennie standing for Labour this election. In his role with the Council of Trades, he suggests gentailers are brought back under the government control. Are you open to that, to renationalising the grid?
I'm not taking any options off the table. We certainly need to change the way our electricity market works. It's working in favour of shareholders, not in favour of the people who are using electricity.
Would that move, though, make it cheaper for people who are paying high prices right now?
Well, that's the key test, I think, that we need to always run over any proposals in the energy sector. Is this actually going to give us more, cheaper, renewable energy?
Where do you think you're strong on Māori policy, in which areas?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think when I've been around the country talking to Māori about what they want to see from Labour in this coming election campaign, the results that I've been hearing back, and I think as reflected in your poll, are very similar to what we're hearing from all New Zealanders. They want to see real action on the cost of living. They want to see action on getting people back into jobs. They want to see action on health. Those are right at the top of the list in terms of where they want us to be focusing our energy. And they want to see action on housing as well. We did a lot in government, papakainga housing, working with iwi to build more houses, and I think there's a lot more we can do in that area.
We're in the north. So we should talk Ngāpuhi. The former Treaty Minister Andrew Little set out to settle the claim, but like many others, couldn't get it across the line. Is it time for a new approach? You have a wahine Māori in your caucus, Masters of Law, treaty negotiator, Māori governance specialist, and she's a Ngāpuhi too. Is it her turn?
Oh, well, I don't allocate any jobs before the election, other than there's only two I've said, the Prime Ministership and the Minister of Finance should go to the largest party in government, and my goal, of course, is for that to be Labour. But other jobs, I think we have to win the votes of the people before we start giving out those jobs. But Willow Jean Prime is a phenomenally talented member of our team and has a lot to contribute. And I hope that we will be able to find a way forward with Ngāpuhi in the nearer future. There's still plenty of discussion to be had there. It is proving to be one of the longer running discussions, but I would love to see that settled, and I think it would be good for Ngāpuhi. I think it would be good for the country.
We are 4.5 election cycles out from the 200th commemoration of Waitangi, of the signing of Te Tiriti or Waitangi. What will you be doing if you become government to make a material difference to the inequities between Māori and other New Zealanders?
I talked today about the fact that we have only got 14 years to go until we're celebrating our bicentennial of the signing of the treaty. And there's a whole lot of other anniversaries between now and then that we will also be celebrating, including the Declaration of Independence in 1835. And we need to be talking now about how we're going to celebrate them, but also what are we going to be celebrating. I would like to see much more equitable outcomes in areas like health and education and housing and employment for Māori, and I'd like to be celebrating that. But as much as those specific things are very, very important, I also hope that by the time we gather here at Waitangi in 2040, we've also got a much more united view as a country about the role of Te Treaty in our society and its importance. It's still a very contested area, but I think there are a lot of values around Te Treaty that do bring New Zealanders together. So I hope that in that 14, 15 years period that we can bring those more to the fore and we can find more common ground.
We heard a lot about from the paepae about partnership. Is Labour still committed to the idea of partnership with Māori?
Absolutely. It is the only way forward. Working together, mahitahi, that is the only way forward.
Chris Hipkins, kua pau te wā ki a tāua. Thank you for your time.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.